Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this special RICOH THETA workshop with some excellent 360-degree photography experts. Today, we have with us Sam Rohn, Mick, and Clay Morehead, who are going to share some features and tips and tricks for the newly released THETA X, as well as the flagship THETA Z1. So I am going to hand it over to Sam Rohn here to kick us off with a quick introduction and talk about a couple of his favorite recent shots he's taken with the X and Z1.
Hey, am I on? Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Sam Rohn. Most of you know me from Facebook and various conferences, etc. I've been shooting with the THETA Z1 for the past 3 years now, and the RICOH THETA X for the past 2 months, maybe, testing an early pre-release unit. I will probably stick with the THETA Z1 for most of my work shooting, but I expect to be using the THETA X for travel, informal, and situations where I have favorable lighting. We can see an image here on the left of a coffee shop. That's our screen, right? We can see the coffee shop THETA X shot. This is almost straight from camera with very little editing. And on the right, we have a more challenging light situation, the RICOH THETA Z1, which saw quite a bit of editing. And I'll be walking you through a little bit of that later on. Is that my time for this segment, or shall I continue?
Yeah, we can let Mick go next.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Mick. I'm with 360 Rumors. It's a website for about 360 cameras. I've been shooting with 360 cameras since May of 2015. And my very first camera was the RICOH THETA. And I'm glad to see how it's like grown so much. And so now we have the THETA X and THETA Z1, and they're really amazing cameras. So here are just a couple of shots that I took. The one on the left is the THETA X with really minor edits in Affinity Photo. And then on the right side is the THETA Z1, which was shot in HDR and DNG and then edited. So just as Sam said, we're going to be talking about like different ways to improve the image quality of your shots in the THETA X and Z1. On to you, Clay.
Okay. My name is Clay Morehead. My background is in architecture and industrial design, actually. I got started in the CG end of things quite a few years ago. And we were modeling open pit mines, ski hills, cement plants, things of that sort. That got me intrigued by the 360 photography aspect. And for the next decade or so, I was producing virtual tours. Now I'm shooting mostly for fun with Thetas. And I'm also getting back into what I love most, 3D design. And I'm doing a lot of parts like this cage for the RICOH THETA X. You can stick this to your car windshield if you like. So I'm going to be showing 2 images. The one I'm going to be editing won't be the car shot. That was kind of a fun shot during the depths of COVID. We'd go out for coffee with a friend, and he made these wonderful sticks where you could pass things safely to each other. I'll actually be editing an interior shot. For the THETA X, I did something interesting. We had a birthday party for a friend, and I thought, well, the X is never going to handle this. And I stuck it on auto, took a shot. It gave me a 15th of a second at about ISO 800, and it was great. And I also shot with a Z1, so hopefully I can show a side-by-side comparison. Okay. On to the moderator.
Thank you all. We're now going to move into each panelist's favorite feature of the new THETA X. So Clay, why don't you kick us off and tell us, you know, what features you're liking best?
I really like how easy it is to use. When I'm shooting with a Z1, I'm Canadian, so I say Z. When I'm shooting with a Z1, I'm always fumbling with a phone and a stick in my hand, particularly in crowd or party scenes. And just being able to set it up and do everything on the camera is great. And the other thing I like right out of the gate is the fact that stuff that's a plug-in for the Z1 is built in to the X, like the time shift. So it's really a great and easy camera to use. Also, shooting and editing, just being able to shoot and edit and post it while you're on the road. Great travel camera, as Sam said. I guess to you, Sam.
Okay, my turn. Hey, I've been shooting again with the Theta Z1 for about 3 years now, and recently with the Theta X for the last few months. I am a huge fan of the Theta X. Oops, it doesn't seem to be playing well with the chroma feature, but the Theta X touchscreen is really, really a lot more useful than I thought. I thought it would be something that I would disable and, you know, just forget about and use the camera the same way I'd been using it with the smartphone. But the touchscreen makes the camera a lot easier to use in the field, especially in situations where you might be changing settings frequently. You don't have to turn on a phone and connect with the phone to change the self-timer function or other function, or remember the multiple teeny keys to press, whoops, with the Theta Z1. Overall ease of use and ergonomics have been tremendously improved with the Theta X. The large button we can see here, only 2 buttons rather than 4 on the side, which is a lot easier to deal with, even though these small buttons are still hard to feel when your fingers are cold in the wintertime. The side port, the USB-C port on the side, is also a big improvement, as you no longer need the stem to connect it where you would to connect the old USB-C cable. But I still find using a small adapter piece makes it easier to connect and disconnect the camera from other parts and move from one tripod to another. How am I doing on time there? Someone else's turn, or keep going? Video quality. I'm also very happy. Sorry. Video quality. I'm also very happy about video quality with the Theta X. And although a few people have had some complaints about image sharpness, this has not been a problem for me. And I have found that in some situations, the Theta X actually delivers more detail and sharpness than the Theta Z1. Mick's turn.
Thanks, Sam. Any other thoughts from you, Mick?
Yeah, I agree with what Sam said about the sharpness, because that's one of the favorite features that I have for the Theta X. Like in terms of the photo sharpness, it is actually more detailed than the Theta Z1. But beyond that, I was also more impressed with the video capabilities, because, you know, to be honest, I've always known RICOH to be, you know, primarily focused on photo. So when they released the video for the Theta X, I was surprised at how much detailed it was. So it was that really impressed me. But even more than that is the real-time stitching for video. So it's the first 360 camera for consumers to have in-camera stitching with stabilization. So there are some cameras, even the Theta V, for example, had real-time stitching, but it wasn't stabilized. So with the Theta X, you get stitching in the camera for the video with stabilization. I also love the accurate colors. So those are some of the things that I like about the Theta X.
Thanks, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So next we're going to move on to the recommended use cases for both the Z1 and X, and I'll kick it over to Sam to give thoughts on that first.
Okay. This is something that I'm still going to be working out in the field. And to be completely honest, I'm probably going to be carrying both of these cameras on my person if I'm using either one or the other. The Theta X produces really, really good images if you're in sufficient light. It takes a bit of practice to understand what that means exactly. But I believe once you understand the limitations of the dynamic range and exposure range of the Theta X JPEG, you should be able to get very good results with it in most situations. However, in almost all of these situations, you would ultimately be able to get more quality from the RICOH THETA Z1 DNG files. This, however, will require a lot of work in post, which not everyone wants. The Theta X also has superior video, so I expect to be using the Theta X for video in preference over the Z1. Why do these keep disappearing? Okay, there we go. I expect also the Theta X will be better in situations where being able to swap the battery and memory card are going to be an advantage. Although personally in my use, I'm still leaning towards using a power bank, which is just one device that I can connect to my phone, both cameras, et cetera, with just a couple of cables. The Z1, I'm still going to prefer to use for shots that I care about getting the very best result that I can with a small camera. But again, the ease of use of the touchscreen on the X is very compelling. So it remains to be seen what I actually end up doing with both of these cameras over the next couple of months. How's that? Who's next?
Thanks, Sam. Mick, why don't we hand it over to you to talk about your recommended cases?
All right. So basically, for me, it's really simple. For number one, if you're shooting video, I would recommend the Theta X because the video on the Theta X is so much better than the video of the Theta Z1. Now, when it comes to photos, what I would suggest is that if you're going to be editing your photo, if you want to take the time to edit your photo to get the best quality, then you would get the Z1. On the other hand, if you don't want to edit your photo, just use the Theta X. You will actually get better results. If both of them are unedited, I actually get better results with that Theta X. So if you want, I could show you like a sample. So here, if you don't mind, I'll share my screen. Okay, so here, so I have here like two photos side by side, one shot by the Theta X and one shot by the Z1, and you can see they look pretty similar. And if you zoom in closely, the one on the right would arguably has better sharpness, and actually the one on the right is the Theta X. So this is, so like I said, if you're not going to be editing, you got actually you'll have a better result with the Theta X. Now on the other hand, there are advantages to the Theta Z1 if you're going to edit. So here, for example, I'm going to show you. This is the Theta Z1, and this is the Theta X. So hang on. So here these are both edited. Okay, so the left one is Z1, the right one is Theta X, and they look kind of similar. But if you zoom in, like let's say here, you look at the ceiling. I hope you guys can see this, but on the right side is the Theta X, and you can see it's kind of blocky, and that's because Theta X shoots only in JPEG, whereas with the Theta Z1 you're shooting in. If you shoot in RAW, you'll get so much better image quality. Like it looks, it looks better to me, even though there's more detail with the Theta X. So same thing here. For example, you can see Z1 looks better than the Theta X. Again, the caveat is that you do need to edit your photos. We're going to be talking about that later on. So let me stop my share. Okay, so maybe Clay, want to say something about the Theta X?
Yeah, I haven't been using the X as long as you guys have, but I've been having a whole lot of fun with it. It's a great camera if you're shooting between dawn and dusk, well-lit interiors, medium contrast scenes, but where it really shines is crowd scenes, current events, photojournalism, construction documentation, things of that sort, and travel. If and when I travel again, I'm going to take an X. I may or may not take a Z1, but I will take an X. One of my focuses is on getting the best noise control that I can. And I hate JPEG with a passion, but the JPEG artifacts in the X are manageable with Topaz. I thought I never would say Topaz, but they're manageable with a Topaz. You can also do, you can also control the JPEG artifacts with Photoshop's neural filter for JPEG artifacts, although it's ponderously long to do it. So yeah, if you need an image where you have to zoom in really, really close, you can edit the images. You're still going to be much better with a Z1 though. So right now, one of the main things about the Z1 is because of the plugins, you can extend the functions way past what the camera can do. So the new DualFisheye RAW plugin is awesome, and I think most Z1 shooters are using it. So hopefully we're going to start to see things coming along for the X pretty soon. Okay.
Excellent. Moving along, we're going to roll into our panelists' recommended tips for shooting with Theta X. Sam, why don't you kick us off for this one?
I'm sorry, shooting tips with the Theta X?
Shooting, yep.
Okay, shooting tips with the Theta X are fairly simple, as we do not have as many options as we do with the Theta Z1. I have found that as a compulsive control freak who likes to do everything manually, I'm getting better results by putting the Theta X in auto mode and letting it do its thing for the most part. Hey, there's an effect I didn't expect. Mostly I'm switching between the Theta X auto exposure, single normal mode, and the HDR mode. The HDR mode does very well in static situations where you do not have any kind of movement, but like any HDR method, you will get some ghosting if you have moving people, if you have trees that are swaying in the breeze, if you have doors that are opening, et cetera, et cetera. So HDR mode is really best used in totally static situations, empty apartments, no people nearby, et cetera. It can work very well outdoors in some cases, but not always. All of this, in my opinion, boils down to being able to judge the light in any situation with your eyes and understanding which exposure mode in which camera will give you the best results. In some cases I have used, I'm going to go for a little screen share right here myself. Whoops, let me just go to screen share and go to Lightroom and share. Okay, now we're in Lightroom and we can see on the left-hand side, I have a, we have an image from the Theta X, and here we have an image from the same scene from the Theta Z1. Didn't have the camera oriented perfectly for both of these. Let me just lock these two images anyway, or no, let me unlock those, sorry. With the Theta X, I shot this in full manual exposure mode because I wanted it was a very dark scene, not a usual scene for a virtual tour, I know, but it was a very dark scene. I needed to go up to 13 seconds to get the exposure that I wanted. And as you can see, I got, yeah, we have a little bit of noise here, but I got very good sharpness and very good dynamic range from this single exposure JPEG mode. However, here we have the single exposure JPEG from the Z1 at a similar setting, and it's really not that tremendously different. One could argue about the minor strengths of both of these, but what this shows me is that if I was only going to be shooting JPEG and I wasn't going to be dealing with DNG files, I would probably be using the Z1. I'm sorry, using the X rather than the Z1. Here we can see, we're just going to go to another example though. Sorry. Where we can, oh, drat. Give these a second to catch up. Here we're comparing the THETA X JPEG to a JPEG which was rendered from the RICOH THETA Z1 DualFisheye RAW plugin by Yoichi Hirota. And this plugin, the DualFisheye RAW plugin in the HDR-DNG mode, gives the best results of any, in my opinion, the best results of any small pocket 360 camera. Let that image catch up for a second. And Mick and I both said earlier that the THETA X has superior detail in most cases. However, the DualFisheye RAW plugin in many cases can give really, really, really impressive results. Again, we could nitpick some minor details where either of these is superior to the other, but overall, the RICOH THETA Z1 DualFisheye RAW plugin, HDR-DNG mode, for me, is still the king. Thank you, Yoichi. I know you're watching.
Thanks, Sam. Clay, what about you? Your recommended shooting tips? X.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't share my screen at the moment due to technical issues. But I agree with what Sam said. But I have a couple different observations about the X. It's almost like shooting with a film camera, if anybody remembers those. You've got to get your white balance right, but the X has a lot of really nice tools for adjusting your white balance. You don't have the latitude to make heavy adjustments. You're going to get combs in your histogram if you adjust your JPEG too much, but the tools are there for you to do that. Also with the X, don't obsess about the leveling the camera. I think they've done a really good job of that. And fascinatingly, I'm not seeing a difference in exposure between the two lenses, like I sometimes see with a Z1. Every shot I've taken, I'm never seeing a soft exposure scene. So I think RICOH's done a really, really good job with processing on that camera. And the other thing I'd say about the X is when you shoot with it, it's like standard photography 101 tips. Underexposed with bright sun and fluffy clouds, overexposed in snow scenes and so on. So you really, although auto will cover a lot of those things. And of course, like the Z1, keep the scene away from objects that are close and detailed. Faces, detail in an artwork or something. That's really, really important. But it's the same thing with the Z1. Over to you, Mick.
Yeah. All right. So in terms of shooting techniques for the THETA X, first tip I want to share is how to not appear in the photo. So when you're taking photos with a THETA X for virtual tours, usually you don't want to show up in the photo. There are a couple of ways to do that. The easiest way is if you have some kind of monopod or light stand, and then you just activate the self timer, just press the shutter and it will count down to, let's say, 5 seconds or 10 seconds. That gives you enough time to move away and then hide. Now, there are many situations where that's not possible, where there's, I mean, where the area is just so open that there's no place to hide. Now, fortunately, the Theta X has this feature called time shift. So when you activate that feature, what you do is you put it on a tripod, and you take a shot, and then you stay on one side of the camera, and then you move to the other side of the camera, then it will take the second shot automatically. Then it will merge the two shots, and it will merge you out of the photo. So I want to give you show you guys like a sample of what that looks like. So here, so this is a photo where I used the time shift feature, and for the first shot I was standing on this side. The second shot I was standing on this side, and it merges the photo automatically so that I'm not at all visible in the shot. So I find this feature really useful. Now, another tip that I'd like to share is what kind of monopod you can use. So I personally, I like to use this monopod. It's an adjustable monopod. This is called Manbilly MT-02. And what I like about it is that the legs can be spread out really far, and
We can't
you
see
can
your.
extend it. I'm
We
sorry.
can't see the tripod.
Oh,
We can see your screen.
sorry, let me stop that share. Sorry. This is the a tripod leg called MT-02. So here it is. So what I like about it is it can extend pretty wide like that, and then you can extend this further. Then it becomes really wide. This is like about 1.5 feet in radius. And it also has this clever spring-loaded connector here that lets it connect to either quarter 20 or quarter 20 or 3/8 adapter. And then, so this is the leg part. And then for the body, for the stick itself, I like to use several, but the one of my favorite ones is this one. This is from Insta360. This is called the Extended Selfie Stick 2nd edition. And what I like about it is it's really fast. Like I don't have to twist it and then untwist it, and it's just really fast. I can set it to any height I want, and it's really long. It's almost 10 feet long, which lets you get really cinematic shots. And then I see some questions about links to the monopod and things like that. Don't worry, I'm gonna post them later on when I have a chance. Now, the third tip that I wanted to share is the best height to shoot. Like when you're shooting with 360, one of the more important considerations for composition is the height, because you're shooting in 360, so you're capturing everything, but the height does matter. So you can't just like randomly place it. Now, there are several philosophies for setting the shooting height. There's one philosophy of setting the camera at the same height as your eyes. You know, some people like to do that, and the idea is that if your viewer is viewing in a VR headset, then they're going to see the same perspective as if they were on the scene. Now, in my opinion, most people do not look at 360 photos on a VR headset. Most people just look at them on a screen. So I have a different way of setting the height, which is to set it closer to half of the height of the room. So let's say here, this room, this is about 8 foot tall ceiling. Then I would set it around 4 feet. Another way you could test it is by using your smartphone. See, when people look at 360 photos, many of them will be looking at it on a smartphone or a laptop. So what you can do is use your phone to test the composition. Like look for the best angle. Like let's say you're in a room then and you want to see, you're trying to figure out what's the best angle here. So let me show you an example of that. Share screen here. So in this, let me show you. So here's a sample of a photo that I shot. Now, if I had shot this from eye level, the camera would be much higher. But to me, the highlight of this scene are these, these flaming red plants. And so I placed them where they would be roughly along the rule of thirds. So like if you divide the screen in like a tic-tac-toe, this would be along the rule of thirds, like all these red plants. So if you get your camera, your phone, and you frame it like that, the way you want to see it on your phone, then whatever the height of your phone is, set your camera to that height. That's what I would recommend. So I'm afraid I might have taken up too much time. So if we have more time later toward the end, that during the Q&A, I can share more tips. But so far, those are some of the tips that I'd like to share.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, we can definitely cover some more in the Q&A section. But for now, we'll move into editing and or shooting tips for the Z1 as opposed to the X. So